Hi everyone, I'm Katya. Thank you so much for coming. I thought I'm gonna just maybe use this opportunity to tell like a story behind this exhibition and like what's my practice is generally about and how I ended up here and what's going on. Actually, it's my like normal thing that I work with found or just old photographs, and I started doing that in like about maybe 3 years ago when I started started my education Royal College of Art, and I just felt myself foreigner and I wasn't really happy about this feeling, and I was thinking a lot about what formed me this way, where I got this like ways like I see things, and I started thinking a lot about my culture and how did it feel to grow up in like in Russia right after Soviet Union. And so technically I came to the idea that like my generation, people who are like around my age, who was born like right before or right after when Soviet Union collapsed, we had a very strange kind of situation with history, because so like normally everyone's grandparents gonna say that Soviet Union was brilliant if they were not like sent to Gulag, and parents gonna say that it was horrible, we just stayed in queues, everything was like, we hated everything, we were like, and also like my parents was very much pro-European, which is also very typical for a generation of Russian 80s. They were all like praising everything foreigner, and so like it's already very mixed, and you're like 5 years old and your parents, your grandparents telling completely different thing. And then like in the history books we still had some Soviet ones, and then it was a new ones in school. So I think it was like a generation basically had no history. My family, as everyone, I had like my family photo archive, but actually no one ever shown it to me for some reason, and I only discovered it when my grandfather died in 2017, and I stayed with my grandma, and I found this archive and just seen their life in like 60s or 70s, and it looked strange for me to see this, like this is the people I know, right, but it's like they're also someone totally different. And while I was studying and thinking of like my like cultural identity and stuff, I was thinking that I really want to interact with these photographs, somehow do something with them, but I didn't know what. And I made like nice albums. I put because it was a mess, all these photographs. At some point I started like printing them out and just drawing on them, and I found out that they become much more expressive, and it just far more interesting for me to paint on a photograph than just on a plain canvas. And I started like enlarging them and putting them on a bigger like scale to see it as a portal where I can kind of, so if I have a photograph I can kind of insert my body in that and bring my presence there and like interact with this photograph, which you cannot, like normally when you have a photograph you can only look on it. So this is like the way how you can interact with a photograph sort of physically. And then mostly I turned away from my family archive and started using photographs from flea markets I was buying in different places. And for a while I was finding it more interesting than my own archive, because it's like totally random people, and there's just something about it, like you just buy a totally random photograph of totally random people and you like paint it 5 times on a big scale. This photograph which no one needed, which is like lost, no one is interested in that. And what is important for Soviet history, it's not censored. So because maybe most like political would be censored, but most of mundane photographs people just wasn't really, I guess, checking them for political content or something. So it's like it's always was amazing for me that it's like this is a window in the past which you still cannot really access, which you have this like very valuable moment of a gone past, which you cannot climb in it and check how it was. And I found it very interesting. And so I was working with that until I came, until I came here. And I was here because I had a residency. Last year I won a residency award in Artwork Open Prize. I didn't really know what I'm gonna do here. So I just came and started doing basically my normal stuff. But then it just happened accidentally that I found a nice photograph of my grandma, which I wanted to work on. And I started thinking a lot about like my grandma and like all this like generation relationships. And recently, both of my grandmothers, so there are stories of two of my grandmothers here. So this one is a Crimean one. There was an original photograph of her with my mom on the beach. And then there was another one who lives in St. Petersburg, but she's from Donetsk. They're both half Ukrainian, and sadly they both support the war. And it was crazy for me to discover at some point, because like when the war started, my first idea was like, okay, that's like the last day of Putin, like no one gonna support it. But eventually, first everyone was shocked, but then like propaganda was started saying that, yeah, like Russia had no other choice, like blah, 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 that like we had to do that, otherwise there was like NATO by the border and all that. Propaganda used it very cleverly, saying that, yeah, again, we're attacked by fascists, now we need to go first, otherwise they would attack us and all that. So, and it was crazy for me, because I was like, in this moment, I was in Poland volunteering like with Ukrainian refugees, seeing those people every day who are like, their houses are bombed by Russia, and like, I'm kind of scared to say where I'm from. And I talked to my grandma, who was like, yeah, of course, believe them. And that was like, I felt I cannot really talk to them anymore, because I just like, I see those people who suffer from the war every day, and they believe their news and don't believe me. And that was really crazy. And when I was here and started thinking, like working with a photographs of my grandmas, I started thinking about that, and like, actually, I finally had a space to see it as a proper like trauma and something I had to go through. And then I started using different transfer techniques, like on this one. This is like an acrylic transfer, when you put like acrylic medium and then like laser print on top. And it didn't go well. And I sort of liked it didn't go well, because it actually looked like a folded photograph. And it's like there are these A3 things, because it's like I didn't find a way to print bigger. I actually liked how it looked, even without painting. I wanted something more realistic than projection, because projection is still handmade, and it's still like somehow there are already a lot of my presence in like when the projection is transferred. But in this, there are much less of presence of like my presence is more. Just like photograph as it is, and with like some random things which happened without my intention. And then for these two works, I used the cyanotype. And cyanotype, this technique invented in England in early 19th century. It was a very important step for inventing photography. So I printed on tracing paper, I printed those photographs I was working with in inversion, and that's how I got an image on canvas. They actually looked really pretty how they were, cyanotypes, but I thought it's like my practice is mostly about all this like inserting yourself in a photograph, like inserting your presence. And I see painting in a way, especially in this like scale, in a way as a dance, or some kind of like interaction with the surface, where you leave your presence and then it's like transposed to like a viewer, because they can like see the movement behind that. And so that's why I thought I'm not like here just to make it pretty. I'm here to find a way how I can transfer my experience in that. And those like bringing my presence in this photograph was a very strong experience actually. And like I think it helped me a lot with like dealing with this like family thing. I think she's reading like toast, how you say it, like this speech, and it's just very much of her, because she's like, she loves doing the things really. She would do it all the time when we have like a family dinner or something. Also, it's such a in a way peaceful scene that people just like enjoying themselves, like eating and chatting, and someone is reading, she may be reading a poem or something, because she's quite into poetry. And all that is so mundane, and then it's like thinking of how this mundane scene can be connected to their decisions to support like Putin and support Russian aggression. She come to like 50 years after. Then this work is actually, it's a bit outside of the whole like story, because originally, like initially the photograph, it was based, had nothing to do with my family, and this is kind of secret. So it was based on a photograph of girls in like 40s in Germany, and they bought this photograph in Leipzig in a flea market. And when I was working on that, I was thinking of my grandmas, because they were kids exactly the same time, and that was like could be one of them. It's like thinking a lot about the connection between what's going on in Russia and what was going on in Germany in like 30s and 40s. It feels very similar. Like even if it's not actually my family photograph, I got this like feeling that it's like someone's maybe having exactly the same story. About texts that probably told. So the texts are basically dialogues with both of my grandmas, and some of them are like very informed by the war, some of them just like childhood stuff, some of them like everyone's grandma gonna say that, you know, you're 30 now, how about getting married or something. At least I think many people like have this. And so I wanted them to be involved in the exhibition and like inform painting somehow and give this context. That it's like as painting contradicts the photograph in kind of the same way, there like it contradicts, it feels like contradicting how they praise the war and everything, and then how they still are my family and still my grandmas and still like people with whom I share also like kind of cute childhood memories and stuff. So yeah, that's I guess pretty much it. It's like one of my granddads is dead, and another one just kind of. This other granddad is not my real granddad. He's like a stepfather of my mom, and that's why we don't have that much of his documents, his photographs. It just I don't know. It just honestly happened accidentally.
It's interesting.
Thanks for coming.